Hello, welcome to Classical to Modern Political Ideologies or Lesson 2. So we are now in Lesson 2. Each theory or ideology in the study of politics has the underlying historical factor that affected its development. We have to study these factors to understand how each theory, framework, or ideology is applied to modern contexts. In analyzing a political issue, we will use several of the theories, frameworks, and ideologies to achieve more accurate analysis and explanation of the issue. Okay, the goal of every government is to mobilize its citizens to achieve a common end. What are these common end? This is the welfare of a state as a whole. As a guide, government use ideologies to help consolidate the support of their constituents. It is also through ideology that civil societies go against oppressive governments. Okay, what is ideology? Ideology is basically defined as a political statement that aim to call upon mass or government action to achieve a relatively better political and economic condition. When we say ideology, it is basically a statement that aim to call upon massive or a government action in order for them to achieve a relatively better political and economic condition. If ever there are something or may nakita sila na hindi maganda sa government, dito na papasok yung ideology. It means that they will create another ideology for them to achieve a better political economic condition. This definition is the product of numerous views from different political scientists and philosophers from the classical to modern period. So this definition of ideology is derived from different and various experiences and various political views that was seen from the classical to modern period. Okay, there are some philosophers who were social contract theorists, like John Locke, uh, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Thomas Hobbes, and other is Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, and Frederick Watkins, David Ingersoll, Althea Sargent, and Terence Ball. They are the philosophers which were social contract theorists. Okay. On the other hand, the first formal use of ideology as a political science jargon was made by Claude de Tracy when he was studying the Enlightenment of Europe. Okay, ideologies are goal-oriented. What is goal? What do we mean by goal-oriented? It means that they are for or against a certain configuration of a political community. Okay, when we try to scrutinize the definition, when we say goal-oriented based on ideology perception, it means that they are for against a certain configuration, meaning they are not they are not into supporting the government, but unless they are against for a certain configuration, not all the time, but they have, if they have seen uh some uh practices in the politics that is not they think that it's not good. Therefore dito napapasok yung ideology, a goal oriented ng ideologies, which is uh, against a certain configuration of a political community. Okay, their applications, however, are dependent upon different political attitudes. As what I have said earlier, that it depends upon the government. It depends upon how they see, how they view the government as a negative one. If they have seen, what you call, um, seems like the changes in politics are not good for the other or the common good, therefore dito napapasok yung ideologies, but it differs upon the political attitudes of a people and institutions, because there are other institutions, I mean government practices that are really good in that area but not in this area. Kaya we have this uh, understanding culture of different I mean, we are studying political science for us to understand the different types of constitutions implemented on each state or each place which has a formal government practices. Okay, Frederick Watkins suggested that ideologies come from the different political extremes such as conservatives, or the pro-status quo on one side and the radicals or anti-status quo on the extreme side. Okay. Modern day political scientists have expanded the spectrum to include different levels of political attitudes and the different ways in which each level wants to preserve or change the status quo. At the extreme right of the spectrum, changing the status quo is not primary concern, and if ever change happens, a retrogressive change is taken into consideration or the return of all status quo. In this level of reactionaries and the conservatives, sandwiched at the middle are the moderates who have no neutral opinion with regard to political matters. Okay, at the left side naman of the spectrum are the liberals and the radicals who are by nature anti-status quo. They are already anti-status quo. Though the radicals push for more extreme changes, they are into more extreme changes in political system. Both the radicals and the liberals, they aim for progressive change in the state. Okay, proceed. Here are some political ideologies and their impact on political communities. First is conservatism. When we say conservatism, it defines here, as the name implies, one is focused on conserving something. When we say conservatism, one is focused on conserving something. It is characterized by a resistance to change, adherent to limited human freedom, as it chooses to maintain here traditional values. Always remember that conservatism always uh, means that to maintain traditional values at some extreme versions, distrust to human reasoning, and the nature of anti-egalitarianism. Okay, when we say conservatism, here is the traditional values. It means that it promotes very traditional social institutions in the context of culture and civilization. Okay, conservatism also refers to the conserving religion, parliamentary government, and the aim of conservatism is stability and continuity, to continue what has been practiced from the era or from the other generation. That is the aim of conservatism. Another, Edmund Burke, through his reflections on the French Revolution, argued that institutions evolve over time to fit the needs of the society. Thus, tampering with the tradition is likely to bring grief rather than improvement. That is according to Sargent. It should be, thou, noted that, however, his idea is not extreme one because he still adheres to change, although through a slow and gradual process. According to late Senator Defensor Santiago naman, that social problems though are not always solved by reason, and that the leftist always imagines that things are better now, but in reality, violent upheavals always make things worse. Okay, violent make things worse. Okay, next is liberalism. It can be said that liberalism is the opposite of conservatism. Why? It because it favors change. In conservatism kasi, it focus on conserving what has been ano yung nakasanayan nila. But in here, liberalism, it favors change. It prefers more freedom and it has optimistic approach to human reasoning and nature. Okay, classical liberalism adheres the laissez-faire system proposed by Adam Smith in his Wealth of Nations, wherein the government thou does not interfere with the market. Modern liberalism, upon seeing the adverse impact of the free market such as monopolies, unfair contracts, and poor become poorer, is more open to the idea that at time the government should interfere. Okay, back here, liberalism is means that the consent of the governed and equality before law. So it means that prefers the freedom, and when we say optimistic approach, it's the positive approach. It's the positive foresee for the particular government or particular political state. Okay, here, Marxism. Marxism ideology, one should be branding with communism. It is the same with communism, socialism, or other similar ideologies as Marxist, because they may not be necessarily reflect the ideas of Karl Marx, although these ideologies might find their roots in the tenets proposed by Marx. Some of social scientists do not even consider Karl Marx as Marxist. Okay, Marxism is some proponents of Marxism is Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, where in Marxism, where society has no class, meaning every person within a society works for a common good. Okay, these are some ideological and conceptual basis of Marxism in the following. First is alienation, class struggle for the second. Third is materialism. And fourth is revolution. Okay. In alienation, this is the relationship between two or more parts of people or parts of oneself in which one is cut off from what? A stranger or alien. And the other. For Marx, alienation in its basic form, alienation from one's labor or a product of one's labor, and capitalism is a great factor in this phenomenon. Okay, it means that in alienation, being isolated from a group or an activity to which one should belong or which one should be involved, meaning estrangement. The worker is made to feel foreign to the products of his or her own labor. That is the example of alienation. Another example of alienation is when a cheating wife is uh, discovered siya by her husband, and he can no longer stand to be around her, so he files for a divorce. That's an example of alienation. Next is class struggle. When we say class struggle, Karl Marx also noted that struggle between bourgeoisie, the capitalist, or the middle class. When we say bourgeoisie, those are the capitalists or the rich people, or pwede natin silang tawagin na middle class, and the proletariat or the workers. The bourgeoisie social classes are class oppresses the exploits of the proletariat not only through unfair compensation of the latter's labors, but also by setting up laws and standards and controlling the system or the state to maintain its social status. It means that the bourgeoisie or those rich people pay the proletariat, which are the workers, to more to do or to make things for them to sell. Okay. In class struggle, the workers have no say to work, for they need money. Of course, in class struggle, it explained now that those who are in the middle class, or what we call bourgeoisie, they pay for the workers or the proletariat. And the proletariat, under the proletariat or the workers, have no choice because they need money. That's how the class struggle works. It means that ginagamit ng those who are in the capitalist class or the middle class, ginagamit nila yung workers to work for them. This is what we call the class struggle. It's conflicting ideas. The struggle for political and economic powers carried on between capitalists and workers. Class struggle, also called the class conflict or class warfare. Okay. But there will come a time for need to educate the proletariat, and they will eventually made aware of their situation and overthrow bourgeoisie and the system they created, which means also overthrowing state. So according to Sargent and Defensor Santiago, there will be a time now that the proletariat will overthrow the bourgeoisie. Okay, when we say materialism naman, Marxism and the offshoots of this ideology offer a complex perspective and the usage of materialism. Most social scientists, however, would agree the basic definition that how people think is greatly affected by how you live. This is according to Sargent. For example, the members of the bourgeoisie might think more profit and leisure, that life is good, and the money they can do anything. This is because they live in a comfortable life with money and power in the state. Meaning they are into materialism. When we say materialism kasi, they do not actually do the hard labor. In fact, their profit might even come in through a passive income. But the members of the proletariat who work every day for income might think they more survival, that life is unfair, because they might think that either there is no good in trying to change their status, or they might be even driven to strive for more, whatever it takes. Okay. In materialism, these are actually used by some communists. As what you have observed, materialism, ginagamit ito ng karamihang mga komunista. Because, as what you have observed, in the example, members of the bourgeoisie class or the middle class, or those who are rich people, that think that pag the more profit, they can do a lot of leisure, and they can work, they can use the proletariat as their workers. At the same time, they have this passive income. We say passive income, example, nakaupo lang sila, tapos may mga natatanggap na sila ng mga profits. At the same time, marami silang mga nabibili sa kanilang sarili, but they do not work for them. Okay, materialism is urging that history is the result of the material conditions rather than ideas. It is in the uh, in what we call the era of merchants, or merchant class. Those but you have observed those katong those times na increasing trade, yung mga barter, uh, dito yung nagsimula yung materialism. Okay. When we say revolution, almost of the theories and ideologies related to Marxism consider proclaiming revolution as the way to change the system. By revolution, Marx did not mean peaceful walkouts but violent one in which the proletariat will topple down the elite class and all the systems they have made. Even in its violent nature, Marx considered revolution as a good and inevitable process that will eventually lead to classless ideal society in the form of communism. Okay. In a revolution, working class attempts to overthrow the bourgeoisie. When we say bourgeoisie, I mean, the working class now, or the proletariat, will overthrow the bourgeoisie or the middle class or yung mga mayayaman. And revolutionists can or will likely have revolution will likely happen in all capitalist countries. 'Di ba? According to Karl Marx, it is actually, even it is violent in nature. According to Karl Marx, revolution, gina-consider niya ang revolution as a good and inevitable process that will eventually lead to a classless ideal society in the form of communism. 'Di ba? Back here, of what Sergeant and Defensor Santiago said, that there will time daw of the need to educate the proletariat, and they will eventually made aware of their situation and will overthrow bourgeoisie in the system they created, which means they also overthrowing state. That is the good example of revolution. Okay, proceed for anarchism. When we say anarchism, while most people are familiar with how anarchy is popularly used to mean chaos due non-existence of control mechanisms, the idea behind it is actually more peaceful coexistence and quality. Okay, contrary to the popular depiction in anarchism, in moves, anarchists believes that since power corrupts, a better system based in voluntary cooperation and not on power relations should be established, and that this system will address the needs of the people more successfully. It is a living simple life without coercion from anyone. As Alexander Bergman said, anarchism teaches that we can live in a society where there is no compulsion. Naturally means liberty. It means freedom from being forced or coerced, a chance a chance to lead the life that suits you best. Okay. When we say anarchism, it is the belief in the abolition of all government and the organization of society in a voluntary, cooperative basis without recourse to force or compulsion. Meaning, hindi compulsory. There should be no hierarchies like the government. This is what we mean by anarchism. Okay, anarchists also believe that people's action should never be forced by other people. This is the main concept of anarchism. We are forced by our own actions but not compulsory and not be forced by other people also. We are inevitable by change but kusa natin to ginagawa, but we are not influenced and forced by other ideas or other perspectives of other people. Okay, in libertarianism, this is another version of anarchism, but here it involves the government in a minimal role such as ensuring the safety of everyone and fairness in whatever constructs or dealings. It is quite the same of anarchism, but in libertarianism is may ambag na dito yung konting ambag na dito yung government, because the aim of the government here is to what? To ensure the safety of everyone and of course pantay-pantay in whatever constructs or dealings. In libertarianism, it is believed that the people should be able to do whatever they want as long as their actions do not hurt others. Okay. Another, in libertarianism, it opposes slavery, rape, theft, murder, and other examples of the initiated violence. Dito napapasok yung government because pero actually minimal role lang ang government, but it has actually a great impact for us because it ensures the safety of everyone. Okay, learning about political ideologies is advantageous in understanding political context. This is why we need to learn or to tackle about political ideologies. In the Philippines, different political ideologies like Marxism and Communism have affected political historical events such as First Quarter Storm during the Marcos dictatorship and the form of different insurgents in the country like the New People's Army and the Communist Party of the Philippines. Kaya may separation of class na, may nag-evolve na ganitong mga grupo. It's because of political ideologies. There are other ideologies depending on the issue or aspect of the human life. One is studying. It depends upon. There are also new ideologies that may crop up. Remember that because of the multitude and the complexity of some issues in politics and governance, we cannot be all too liberal or too conservative. Okay. That is the importance of studying ideologies. We cannot, this in here, it means daw that there are also new ideologies that may crop up. Remember that because of the multitude or complexity of some issues in politics and governance, we cannot be also liberal and conservative. And the issue or aspect of human life, one is studying. My professor in college in political science, he said that if you want daw, kung gusto mo maging mayaman, mag-aral ka ng mabuti at you have to study the government well, and after you've studied daw, punta ka sa bukid at you will put a community group, and I don't know if what this mean, but sabi niya, magiging mayaman ka. It's because this is the product of different ideologies kasi. Because, in my perspective or ideology, this is what I think the government I have seen. But in other ideologies, they have seen the government as a negative one. That's why pumunta sila sa bukid and nagbuo sila ng grupo ng kanila, and they opposed the government itself because they wanted that the other, I mean, they wanted revolution, they wanted the government to change itself, to be para sumang-ayon sa kanilang gusto. But that's how the class struggle or the class warfare works, and this is what we call ideology. So, did you understand? Okay, in analysis guide, if you have seen this analysis guide, please screenshot this, and you can answer it on your notepad, or any, you can write it on a clean paper. You can take picture, and or else you can type it on your cell phones and answer it, and screenshot it or picture it and send it to our GC. Okay? Okay, thank you thank you everyone, and have a good day. Goodbye.